Hello and welcome to, I guess this is pre-E3 coverage of the second minor press conference that's happening pre-E3. Last week we had the Call of Duty one. This week we have the Battlefield one. My name is Aaron, and I am joined by Zach. Hello, Zach.
Hello. How's it going?
Zach, you are a self-professed Battlefield expert. Is that correct?
That is false. I have liked the series for a number of years, but I would not call myself an expert.
Well, they revealed Battlefield 5 in a very weird setting. It was a silent group of people. Like the Call of Duty one, I feel like everyone was cheering nonstop. And I, at times, didn't realize there was a seated audience for this. But
yeah, it was very, very different type of conference. Yeah, the Call of Duty one was this big, like, it was basically felt like an E3 stage, and they had people out there, almost like a paid audience that were like cheering wildly at every single thing they said. And the Battlefield one was like a nighttime talk show, but
so tame. Yeah, it was like watching The Daily Show because Trevor Noah was the host for some reason.
Well, yeah, but even that audience is way more into whatever's happening than the one for Battlefield. It was a very quiet crowd. It was very low key.
Yes. So we're going to World War II in Battlefield 5. Which I heard some people saying like, oh yeah, it's definitely going to be, because they released a teaser last week and it was just like Battlefield V, or like it's like the Roman numeral for 5, and everyone was like, oh man, this is going to be like Vietnam. But it isn't. It's World War II.
It is World War II. The naming convention is real wacky right now. You got Battlefield 1, now we're Battlefield 5.
That's a good point.
It was World War I last year. It's World War II this year. I have no idea what are they doing with the next one.
Wouldn't it have been awesome if it was World War V and it was set in the future? Because they've done future games before, right?
They have, but they're on this old-timey kick where everybody, like, it's not fashionable to do a future warfare game these days for multiplayer. You got to go back to the past.
That's true. So the first thing they talked about was all the game modes, and they seem pretty crazy. There was one that was called it's called Grand Operations, I think I'm gonna get all this wrong.
So this is a new version of Operations that they had added to World War I and Battlefield 1, and those are basically these big, like, long form matches that played out on probably the largest maps that they had in the game, and it's sort of a little bit akin to maybe Overwatch, where you kind of start out and you have this objective that you have to, both sides are sort of fighting over. One's defending, one's attacking, and it sort of moves across the map. And as they like sort of take objectives or whatever, it keeps moving. It's not quite like, I'm not saying it's exactly the same as Overwatch. Don't take it that way. I'm just sort of trying to illustrate what it would be like, I guess. But there was always like some sort of big vehicle that you could be in that did like one of them is a train. And so you're sort of escorting this train almost and pushing to different objectives and everything.
Now, what is the thing that they were talking about where it takes place over multiple days and you win a battle and then the next battle is influenced by the first battle?
So that was their Tides of War thing. It was this, what they were saying is sort of a journey through World War II, and it involves like daily, weekly, monthly themed events. And within those, there'll be like new modes and unlockable items. And the first chapter that they're going to have at launch will be the fall of Europe. And so I would imagine that's going to sort of take place over all their multiplayer modes, including the Grand Operations. And yeah, I think it's going to be somewhat seasonal, where like the first chapter will be like at launch through probably over the holidays and everything. Mm-hmm. And then eventually they'll have like a chapter 2 or whatever. So it's going to be kind of like a live service that just like keeps going. And I wondered, I don't know that they showed specifically, but from the sound of it, it almost sounded like one of those things like, what was that? The game with like the samurai and the Vikings.
Oh, I don't remember. Everyone knows what you're talking about. That game came and went.
Yeah, that game came and went. But the interesting thing that it did was that there were seasons for that game too, where you would align yourself with a faction or whatever, and you would be fighting. You'd be playing the game modes, and your wins would count towards this overall thing where everybody was sort of in competition with each other, and whoever won that season or whatever, won the most matches or whatever, you would get like special things for having won. And this sounded maybe a little bit like that, where you have the different factions and you're fighting, you're playing the game modes, and it's like the season. So maybe, the British or whatever win the first season or whatever, and they get all these unlocks. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it's going to go, but it sounded like that to me.
Well, speaking of season-long things and getting things throughout the season, there's no premium pass or paid DLCs, Zach.
It's very exciting. It sounds like something that people want from all games at this point. But people were speculating, like, what's the catch, right? Like, no premium pass, no, like...
What was the premium pass in the previous games?
It was basically you would get, like, all the downloadable maps and modes and stuff over time. Kind of like how in Destiny, when we bought the main game, we also got the first DLCs with it. It's just that. You just, like, pay essentially twice the amount of the base game, and then you get, like, all the DLCs that come with it. You don't have to do that now. You don't have to buy that. You're going to get all the DLCs, and that way they're not sort of splitting the community between the people who paid for all the maps and everything and the people who didn't, which is a good idea.
That got a big cheer in the room. That was like the first time I realized there was a live audience.
Yeah, so the big thing with it is you're not having to pay for extra content, but you're also not like paying for loot boxes. There's like it was very specific. No, because of Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
They wanted to emphasize there's not like loot box progression going on here. You're not buying loot boxes and or even, I don't even know if you're earning them or unlocking them. There's an added emphasis on this thing as a live service that will continue going, and they'll just keep getting constant updates. And that kind of ties back into the Tides of War thing with the like daily, weekly, monthly events and sort of seasonal whatever. And you get like unlocks that go with all of that stuff. And that sort of ties into the customization stuff that they were talking about, which seemed pretty cool and seemed like something people had wanted from Battlefield for a long time, where now you can customize your characters with, I don't know, unique looking cosmetic items like your face paint, your jackets, your hats, your pants, stuff like that.
Your prosthetic arms?
Perhaps prosthetic arms, we don't know, but there was definitely a character in that trailer that had a prosthetic arm. But yeah, you get stuff like that, and you get customization options for your weapons and vehicles. And I would imagine that they will probably have some way of buying cosmetic items if you want them, just so that they can make some sort of money on that. But it's obviously not like required. And because they're cosmetic, it won't affect gameplay or balance or anything like that. So they were also very much emphasizing the fact that it's a rock, paper, scissors type of balance where everything you unlock, all the weapons and everything, you get by leveling up. But even somebody who's like played a bunch and leveled up and gotten a bunch of unlocks versus somebody who hasn't, you're not necessarily going to be at a disadvantage because no weapon is necessarily better than others. It's just sort of everything has its own strength and weakness. So, which makes sense, right? Like a submachine gun should probably be better than like a sniper rifle up close, but a sniper rifle obviously much better at range. So stuff like that.
Talk to me about Airborne, because I don't think I saw this part of the press conference.
They didn't really show any of it, or it's my understanding that there was several hours worth of like them showing off the game and stuff before the event actually happened to like media and specific, YouTubers or streamers or whatever. But they didn't actually show anything during the event, which I thought was really strange, but I guess it's so people can talk about it, but not necessarily have footage in case they want to change things. But yeah, there's this new Airborne mode that seems to maybe be this like compromise, this Battlefield-ish way of doing Battle Royale that's not Battle Royale, because you're like an airborne division person and you're dropping in and you have very limited supplies. Like you might only have one clip and a little bit of health. And so you have to drop in behind enemy lines, and your objective is to take out long-ranged artillery. And they said something about how if you're one of the defenders, you can like sit in an AA cannon and take out carriers and rack up lots of kills by shooting the people as they're trying to drop in. So it sounds like not Battle Royale, but something that might scratch that itch if you like Battlefield and you like Battle Royale, but it's not necessarily Battle Royale. Though they did say that they're not ruling out potentially making one of those modes in the future, because it would be a natural fit for Battlefield, which I thought was interesting.
We've only been talking about multiplayer right now, but there are going to be story missions, single player stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the same kind of way they did single player for Battlefield 1, where they have the war stories where there's...
Yeah, war stories.
Yeah, they're like not full-on campaigns themselves. They're more like episodes or whatever, or chapters where you follow like a specific group of people through their story in like a specific theater of war. And so yeah, they're gonna have those, and people were very excited about that, because it seems weird to me, because I feel like the majority of people won't lament not have the lack of single player for Black Ops 4, but it seemed to get this big like negative reaction online where people were all upset about the fact that Call of Duty is removing the single player. And so it got a big reaction when they're like, oh yeah, we're going to actually have single player, and people are super happy about that. So I don't know. I guess I could take it or leave it. Like I'll probably maybe play through it once. I don't think I played through all the war stories in Battlefield 1, but if you like them, it's going to be there. And I don't know.
A long time ago, I believe it was a Battlefield game, was being shown at E3, and they invented a term that they called levolution, where their maps and multiplayer would change as destruction happened. And I believe that was Battlefield, and they have added to that again as well by adding something called fortifications into this game.
Yeah, so it's a game-wide feature that can be done across all the modes in Battlefield 5. And so the complaint was that, well, you added destructible environments, which is very cool, but it could possibly get to a point where there's like no cover anymore. And so you're just sort of everybody's standing out in the open. And that was definitely the case for certain maps. Not all maps, but some of them could definitely get to a point where there just wasn't any cover anymore. So now every player, kind of like in Battlefield 1, every player had like a gas mask that they could put on their face so that they could not die to gas or whatever whenever people had those gas grenades. Well, now everyone will have a toolbox that they carry with them, and they can use it to build up fortifications. They can add like sandbags and build foxholes and machine gun nests and things like that. But they're only in...
This isn't a class, though. It's not like a medic or like a builder. everyone can build these?
Correct. Yeah. So everybody kind of like I said, I think you on PS4 anyway, you would hit up on the D-pad and you would put on a gas mask. So it was just like a piece of equipment that you had with you that you could switch to. I would imagine it's going to work pretty similarly to that, where you just hit up on the D-pad and you have this like toolbox that you can use to make something. They explained it as being something that you would build in a specific location. So not just anywhere. You're not just like walking around. You're like, oh, I'm going to put some sandbags here. Like yeah,
because that could lead to some game breaking stuff if you just like figure out where their spawn is and somehow like trap them in their spawn by building things all around all the alleyways.
Well, and the interesting thing about the way Battlefield does spawning is that you can spawn on squad mates and you can spawn on objective points. Like, there's always multiple objectives, and if your team has control of multiple objectives, you can spawn on those, but you can also like squad spawn. Like even in the trailer,
squad
spawn. Yeah, in the trailer they showed, it was interesting. If you watch it pretty closely, there's a part towards the end of it where the guy is like running and sliding and he's shooting the whole time he's doing that, and then he like runs out of ammo and some guy, like an enemy, comes up and he starts doing this like melee kill and his face gets all up in the camera and everything. And then you see like in the middle of the screen, it says squad spawn on you plus 10 points. And then somebody comes up and melees them in the back and like does this crazy kill with like this bat or something. So yeah, it looks like way more dynamic. I don't know if that's actually how gameplay is going to look. Like maybe that was some sort of melee takedown animation, which they have done in the past, but definitely not that elaborate.
So that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. What percent of that, like we both watched the trailer. I watched it on phone, unfortunately, but like it definitely, I know Battlefield is known for having amazing graphics and stuff, but what percent of that trailer do you think was actually real?
I would say probably fairly small portion of it was what
it seemed really like canned.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like a pre-done animation and not like gameplay or what you can expect from gameplay. Though they did say that they were revamping movement and making it way more dynamic. So I think it's possible to be like sliding around, which does happen in that trailer. So potentially that part where he's holding up the gun and he's like kind of running and sliding and falling backwards, but he's still like shooting, that is potentially what gameplay could look like, or something very similar to that. And they did say that they revamped weapons as well. So like you can actually be firing while mantling over objects or sliding or falling backwards and things like that, which is interesting. But they also said that now, even more so than in past Battlefield games, like the caliber matters. So like you can learn a recoil pattern, and like light machine guns can fire through walls and things like that. So I don't know. I think it could be interesting. I wish they had shown some of this stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to see actual, like, I don't think what we saw was gameplay. Like, it was highly stylized. I would liken it to, not as egregious, but that Killzone trailer that always gets a lot of bad talk. But I feel like I want to see actual gameplay of this, which we'll probably see at E3. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they said that they're going to actually show some stuff off in 2 weeks, which I would imagine, is that E3? 2 weeks? 2 or 3?
3 weeks away.
Well,
it is 3 weeks away.
Maybe it's like, I don't know. They said specifically during the press conference that they were going to have more to show in 2 weeks.
EA has a press conference at E3, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine they're going to show off a bunch of it during that time. But
they'll have Pele again.
They might have something going on before E3 as well.
Interesting.
The other interesting change is that now anyone can revive teammates. Before it was only the medic class.
That's crazy.
But apparently it will take longer to revive somebody if you're not a medic. So you can like actually grab them and like drag a down teammate behind cover and then revive them.
Interesting. Oh, wait, so you can't move when you're downed?
No, like if you're usually what will happen in a Battlefield game is you'll die and you'll like the spawn thing will come up, but you have to wait, obviously. And you can either rush that and just spawn immediately, which a lot of people do instead of waiting for the medic to come. And in Battlefield 1, to try to stop that from happening, they would show you where nearby medics were, or like they would have a little thing on the screen that would say, you know, there's these 2 medics and they're like 15 meters away or whatever. And so you would be like, oh, I hope they come revive me. I'm going to wait it out. And then if you wait so long and it doesn't, you know, nobody comes to revive you, then you just respawn automatically. But
that's like Far Cry 5 kind of.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, you're dead and you're not watching a kill cam. You're just sort of hovering, like the view is sort of hovering over your dead body, I guess. Mm-hmm. And you're waiting for somebody to come revive you. And then, so if you're a medic, you can see like there's a little icon on the screen where one of your down teammates are, and you can just run over and revive them. But I guess that's going to be available for all players now, and you can just go revive a teammate. But it's not instant the way it is in past Battlefields, so you may want to drag them behind cover before you revive them.
I'm very interested to see actual gameplay of this, because this looks pretty interesting. If it's like even a little bit like what they showed, where you're like jumping around and you can like fall on your back and continue shooting, I think that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it seems crazy. I'm wondering, because they mentioned it, and I was like, oh, I definitely want to hear more about this revamped movement system and how all of that's going to work. And then they didn't talk about it again for the rest of the thing, and they definitely didn't show anything. So,
well, we'll be sure to. Do you have any final thoughts?
I guess let me ask you. I know you didn't get to see much from this, but which would you say you're more interested in between this and Black Ops 4?
I would say Black Ops 4, because I love Battle Royales, and I'm interested in... I don't know, I feel like I like a modern setting. I have gone on record as saying I hate the past. So I'm pro modern setting, and I'm pro whatever their crazy blackout mode is. This looks cool, and I like the graphics of Battlefield games have always blown me away. But
well, you did also say in one of our previous episodes that PUBG could basically be World War II. Like
very true.
The only real difference is some more modern weapons, but otherwise
yes.
It may as well just be any time period. And
it's a good point.
So I feel like if you tried this game, you would probably be super into it. And I do think there's a lot going on, and it can be very overwhelming to look at. In fact, I tried playing a little bit of Battlefield 1 yesterday after the reveal event, and there were just like smoke-filled like corridors that I couldn't see anything, and I would just like get shot a couple of times and die, and I'm like, how do you even see me? I don't even understand. But I do like the gameplay of Battlefield. I think it's way more interesting, maybe. Like, I understand that Call of Duty's fun, fast, and like it's all about, you know, quick action, and Battlefield's a little bit bigger and more drawn out. But I like the squad play. I like that there's an emphasis on working together as a squad, and like you have a squad leader who can assign an objective, and you guys get extra points for working together to accomplish things. I really like that aspect of it, and I like that there's like medics and people who can throw out ammo and resupply you. So I don't know. I really like the Battlefield gameplay, and while I guess I might prefer a modern setting over like World War II, I just like that gameplay of Battlefield, and I like the destructible environments and things like that. I think it's a way more dynamic game. So I don't know. I was also very into what I saw of Black Ops 4, but I really want to play Battlefield with you, because I think it could be fun, especially if we get like a squad going. Like if you, me, and Mike or whatever. We always talk about Mike, even though he's never on the show. But
he'll be on eventually.
If we like all got it together and joined up in a squad, I think it would be a lot of fun.
I agree. I think it will depend on when is it coming out? Did they give a release date?
Yeah, it was October 19th. So I guess
when is Black Ops?
It was the 12th. So I guess they're like a week apart, and they're all like a couple of weeks ahead of Red Dead 2.
Yeah,
it's going to be a jam-packed time this fall.
That time is always, it's the time when I am busiest at work, and it's also the time when all the video games come out.
Yeah, it's going to be rough keeping up with all of that.
But we'll cover whatever their event is in 2 weeks, because I'm interested to see legit gameplay. So look forward to that. And look forward to more E3, pre-E3, and current E3 and post-E3 coverage. We're going to have some speculation videos coming out. And when the actual press conferences happen, we're going to be covering those. So, and follow us on Twitter, because I think, didn't you say you live tweeted this press conference?
I did, to an audience of basically no one. But I did do some live tweeting where I posted some even screenshots of the concept art that they kept showing. So I did stuff like that. And yeah, so follow us on Twitter, follow us on...
At starsidecafe.
Yeah, follow us on Google+. I also posted some stuff on there. And then, where else? Oh yeah, send us an email at starsidecafe@gmail.com if you have any topics you want us to discuss or any questions.
Cool. Well, we'll see you next time.
Yep, see ya.